Hello aspirants, looking at editorials and question bank for 5th December. The first editorial in the Hindu newspaper is Due Diligence Unsafe Drugs. So this is regarding fixed dose combination drugs which we have already discussed in news on 2nd December. This is the first news item covered then. So this is the same thing covered in the editorial presently, that 344 fixed dose combination drugs licenses were cancelled. They were banned by the government by a notification in March 2016. So presently the Delhi High Court has given a judgment on this ban because all these pharmaceutical companies had protested against this and filed a petition in High Courts. There were more than 400 petitions being filed. And now the Delhi High Court verdict says that this ban is not justified and this ban is quashed. So now these fixed dose combination drugs are no longer banned. So now the thing is that the editorial says that it was necessary to quash this, ban these fixed dose combination drugs, but the process used by the government was wrong. So what the judiciary has given in its judgment is also, it is clearly saying that the judgment is based on the process. So if the due process is not followed, the process as provided by the law is not followed, then the judiciary has the right to cancel this. It's called unconstitutional, illegal, unjusticiable. So this is because the Drug Regulation and Control Act calls for these decisions to be taken with the advice, technical advice of statutory bodies. Statutory bodies means bodies formed by statute, by a law. So these are statutory bodies, Drug Testing Advisory Board and Drug Consultative Committees. So these were not involved in the process actually. What the government did was, it said that these fixed dose combination drugs, 344 of these drugs, have no therapeutical value. So they are not of any benefit to the patients. So then they have to be banned. So they cancel the licenses of all these drugs, and then the government asked them to reapply for the licenses, and all these applications were then given to 10 committees to look into it. And when these 10 committees could not give their judgment on this, could not look into all these applications, the government set up another committee called Kokate Committee to look into this matter, and this Kokate Committee gave its recommendations on fixed dose combination drugs, and based on the recommendations of this Kokate Committee, this banning order was put forth. So that's why the judiciary says, since the committees, these technical committees were not involved, this is not the due process followed, so this has been quashed. So the editorial also says that it is necessary that government should follow the right process. So the last line you can see, the real lesson from the episode concerns governance, not the law alone. So governance should be followed diligently. It should not be trespassed. The due process has to be upheld. So this is regarding the fixed dose combination drugs which were banned. So many of them have to be, since they have no therapeutical value as the researchers have shown. Then the next editorial in the Hindu newspaper is Indonesia's blasphemy protests. This is regarding city Jakarta's governor Basuki Purnama in Indonesia. He is said to be double minority because he is ethnically Chinese as well as a Christian. So now Indonesia, we know, is a Muslim majority country. So he had said in one of his statements, he made a statement that Quranic verses are being used to trick voters into believing that Muslims cannot be led by non-Muslims. So this was a sentiment which he put forth. So this was protested against. It's called blasphemy. Blasphemy means insulting the religion. So such charges have been put against him, and investigation is going on against him, and there are protests in Jakarta against this governor Basuki Purnama. So this article is on that, the editorial, but then just the information you should know about it. There is no question in prelims or mains expected on this issue. So that people are angry, it also says, because he had also undertaken large scale slum evictions in Jakarta, and majorly the protests are going on in Jakarta. Then another point put forth is that Indonesia, just like Malaysia, is a regional bulwark against extremism. So they have maintained secular tolerance. Christians, Hindus, Buddhist minorities stay safely in these countries. So now it should uphold that tolerance as such even in present times. So that is why it is essential that Indonesia does not fall into this game. The opposition politicians do not fall into this game, which will make it the hotbed of even recruitment for various terrorist organizations like IS. So there are cases where even suspicion that hundreds of youths from Indonesia have recently traveled to Syria to join IS. So this threat is always looming large. So we should not fan such sentiments, religious sentiments, so that people are attracted to such terrorist groups. So it should safeguard Indonesia. Then the next editorial is from Indian Express newspaper. This is the limits of anger. So this is regarding what we have already discussed in news. That is President Ashraf Ghani in Heart of Asia Summit in Amritsar. He made toxic remarks against Pakistan. He refused to acknowledge their $500 million pledge, and he said rather it should be used to contain extremism within its country so that terrorist groups like Haqqani Network, which affect Afghanistan, do not prosper, and they are eliminated to ensure that peace prevails in Afghanistan. So development will only be possible. This money can be useful only if there is peace. Without peace, this financial aid is of no use. So these were strong words which President Ashraf Ghani spoke there, and even Narendra Modi also spoke on the same thing. He said silence and inaction against terrorism in Afghanistan and in the neighboring region, it will only embolden terrorists and their masters. So we have also seen that we have conducted cross LOC strikes, and post that tensions across the LOC and international border between India and Pakistan have escalated. So because of this, we are seeing that the people facing the brunt majorly is the armed forces. So it says that India's actions have simply replaced one equilibrium on LOC. That LOC is an equilibrium we have stuck here, that this is the ceasefire line. So this equilibrium has been replaced by another equilibrium which is bloodier, which is causing more deaths and casualties. So this is the point put forth. So it says that disengagement, just like engagement, will not offer any results unless it is part of a creative strategy. So Indian government, it says, has no strategy. How should it go forth? So we were engaging with Pakistan, conducting talks, but it was realized that talks are useless. So now we are not talking. There are no talks conducted. Even presently, Mr. Sartaj Aziz from Pakistan, who came for the Heart of Asia Summit, there were no bilateral discussions with India. So this thing, as we see, so when we are not talking, then what goes ahead? How does India go ahead from this? So that is the question put forth. So the editorial also gives a suggestion that we should not have this mindless hawkishness which will make people of Pakistan also support their government against India. So rather we should appeal to the people of Pakistan to ensure that with their support, just as once Narendra Modi had already done, that with the support of people of India against terrorism, support of people of Pakistan as well against terrorism, the countries can come together and come to a peaceful solution. So that is the point put forth. It says it could do much more to revive its ties with Russia and Central Asian states. So these are important actors. We are also seeing that even at Heart of Asia conference, Russia supported Pakistan, saying that this is not the platform where Pakistan should be targeted, as was done by Afghanistan and India. So Russia is also moving closer to Pakistan. So we should take care of such delicate relations and ensure that we do not lose our traditional historical friends, allies. So another one is China. So China also, we can bring in common objectives here with China to ensure that Pakistan is not supported by China. So there need to be alternatives coming forth to ensure to isolate Pakistan and achieve our objectives rather than just not engaging. Disengagement is not a solution. So that is the point put forth. Then the next editorial is, this is Indian Express again, cutting edge. So this is regarding RBI's monetary policy review, which will take place presently. So the RBI will decide its repo rate, whether it's going to cut the repo rate or not, or increase or decrease. So the repo rate is the rate at which banks borrow from RBI. So this short-term basis rate, this decides the rate of interest. So based on the repo rate of interest which the banks also charge from their customers is decided. So if the rate charged by RBI is high, then banks will also seek high interest rates from their customers, means from the loans which they give. So when these interest rates are high, then money flow in the economy is contracted. So what happens is that presently, because of demonetization, economic activity is lull. So increase in repo rate is not called for. Rather, it is what is called for is a cut in repo rate. So if there's a cut in repo rate, then interest rates go down. So then in the economy also gets a spur. So that is what is required, a spur in the economy to move the economy positively in the upward direction. Interest rates have to go down. Now on the other side, there's the dilemma is that US Federal Reserve, means the Central Bank of USA, is also going to have its policy review, and in this there are high expectations that the rates would go high. So USA is increasing their interest rates. So when the government here increases interest rates, then the bonds or of US become more attractive for foreign investors. So when dollar rates bonds are more attractive, there will be flow of funds out of these developing countries including India into US. So this we are already seeing just based on high expectations. Even though the rates have not been declared yet, based on these high expectations, funds outflow have already taken place. So FIIs which are there are short term, so they can anyway fly out of the country. So these investments have already have left the shores of India and other developing countries. So this is seen even though, because again Donald Trump, the elected president of USA, has plans to give a spur to the economy. So based on this positive outlook towards the economy, US is becoming an attractive investment destination. So when their interest rates are high, so there is not much difference between interest rates which an investor would get from USA and from India. So of course the attraction would be towards USA. So that is why there is no way that we should reduce our interest rates further. Though then there will be more flight of capital from foreign investors in India. So this, what is expected is that the rate cut would not take place, because there is not that we increase the interest rate. We are already at a higher interest rate than USA. So only thing we'll do is we'll not cut an interest rate, and the editorial justifies that action too, that because interest rates passing on of repo rate interest rates as interest rates for loans by banks does not generally take place. It is seen that banks do not pass on this benefit to the customers because they themselves are under constraint because of NPAs, non-performing assets which they have. But now with demonetization, there is huge amount of inflow of capital, cash with the banks. So now since they have so much of money with them, then without even the repo rate cut, they will be able to pass on lower interest rates to the people, provided the CRR requirement which the government is putting on them, that the entire 100% should be as CRR, cash reserve ratio, which is to be stocked with the RBI of all the money which has come in during a particular time frame before and after this demonetization which the RBI had declared for some time. So such initiatives should not be taken. Rather, market stabilization schemes should be initiated to ensure that excessive liquidity does not come out in the economy, rather than using CRR, which is fund kept idle. It cannot be invested, used with any purpose as such. So such idle stocking of funds should not take place. Rather, it should be cash management bills which can be issued so that liquidity can be sucked out. So like if government bonds are sold off to the banks, so then the RBI has to pay interest to the banks because they are buying these bonds, and the money is also taken in, plus it is not without any profit for the banks. So that is what has to take place, is one suggestion which the editorial gives. So these are the editorials. Next we look at the question bank. So there we have picked up two questions from today's articles. The first question is, the Central Bureau of Investigation functions under Department of Personnel, Ministry of Personnel, Pension and Public Grievances, and is a premier investigating police agency in India. However, it suffers on various counts. Critically examine the factors that hinder efficient functioning of the CBI. The CBI was established in 1941 and it derives its powers from the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946. So CBI's functioning is hindered by various reasons. First and foremost is charges of corruption. Even recently the Enforcement Directorate reported adverse remarks against two former CBI chiefs. So such allegations and allegations of corruption against the officials too, about harassment to the public, dishonesty which is displayed by them, spoil the name of CBI. So corruption is one aspect which drives the CBI, which brings a bad name to it. Second is politicization. So it is seen that CBI is vulnerable to political pressure. There is huge engagement between the CBI director and the government, but there is a requirement that it upholds truth and prevents politicization of the agency. So less than 10% of the cases, it says, in CBI are of political nature. So it should make sure that these are kept away from politicization and CBI's name is again not spoiled. So that is another way. Then the other aspect is delays in concluding investigations. So this is a huge economic delay. Once even the CVC, Central Vigilance Commission, said that CBI is like a black hole. Nothing that goes in it ever comes out. Means once a case is filed with the CBI, it goes on and no conclusion comes out of it. So this is the same thing which our judicial system is suffering with too, and CBI should now make sure that it does not get into this cycle of delays. Rather, what is required for this matter is CBI's infrastructure should be expanded. There should be sufficient manpower to ensure that it can handle all cases without delay, as even a judicial system requires more of infrastructure and manpower. So that is there. Then another is lack of sufficient recruitment of youth. So it should become an attractive service for youth too. So government exams which are conducted, the exams for CBI should also become attractive. There should be promotion of these exams, awareness about these exams, and youth should be attracted through even the campuses, college campuses. So such initiatives need to be taken to bring in more youth in CBI. Then another point of issue in CBI is dependence on state governments. So Central Bureau of Investigation is dependent on state governments because the cases which they are investigating in a particular state, they need the consensus of the state government. Unless approval is not given by the state government, the investigation cannot take place. So this is a major issue because police is a state subject. There is no separate act for CBI. So CBI, as it functions under the Delhi Police Establishment Act, it requires these permissions. So that is Code of Criminal Procedure, through which it functions as a police agency. So other organizations have their separate act. So similarly, we should have a separate act for CBI as well. So that is there, like CVC has its separate act and so on. Income Tax Act is there, Customs Act is there. So on the same lines, we can have an act for CBI as well, so that it can get independent powers of investigation. So it will not be on the mercy of the states. So this was an article by a former CBI director. The next question which we discuss is, major cities in India are becoming more vulnerable to flood conditions. Discuss. So this is GS1 paper 1 mains 2016 question, the exam which was conducted in the morning today. So this question can be answered based on an article in the Hindu newspaper on the perspective page, Unbuilding Our Cities. So what we'll discuss here is how major cities are becoming more vulnerable to flood conditions and what steps can be taken to ensure that they can be protected. So these points which are discussed are, first and foremost, the reasons are unwise land use in the cities. So this is one major reason, and another factor which is making them more vulnerable is climate change. So we have seen that even under the Paris Agreement, the target is to contain the temperature, global average temperature rise to less than 2 degrees Celsius. So even if the planet becomes 2 degrees Celsius hotter by the end of this century, then it will result in significant sea level temperatures rising. So when sea level temperatures rise, then flooding would again take place too. So it's not just by rain related flooding, but even sea levels rising would result in further flooding in the cities. So this is another factor. Then of course, rapid urbanization in the cities. So census 2011 saw that India's urban population grew more than the rural population for the first time since 1921. So this rapid urbanization is also a factor. So when rapid urbanization takes place, then built up area in the city also increases, construction activities increase, workers in the cities increase, migrants increase, and this results in proliferation of slums in the cities too. So this is another factor. Then encroachment. So not just encroachment through slums, but encroachment by industries too. So it also talks of the land encroachment by industries. So they take up land from marshlands, creeks, salt pans, all these areas are also taken away for infrastructure, industry development. So this settlements in such places is an encroachment on nature. So then when such flood related activities actually happen, then the city will not be able to come out of it. So these are the aspects which need to be taken care of. So it says that the government may provide licenses to infrastructure, industries and urbanization, but then the courts may also call for encroachment only by slums. But these industrial and encroachments or official encroachments, license encroachments on nature's reserves by the people will not be spared when floods and disasters actually strike. So this is the point which needs to be highlighted. The statement which it makes is floodwaters follow the laws of nature here. Encroachments are defined by location, not by license. So this is a strong statement here. So now what steps have already been taken to contain floods? Floods are inadequate. So what the governments generally do is stormwater drains are built up. They remove encroachments, they desilt water bodies, bridges and all these areas are desilted. They provide early warning system, disaster response machinery is enhanced. So these steps are taken, but these are not sufficient. A long-term, larger scale efforts are required. It says unbuild the cities, as the title is to, that we don't have to build climate resistant and resilient and disaster resilient cities, but we have to unbuild them, because there's so much of building and construction taking place in cities that cities have no space to breathe. There is requirement of free land in cities to ensure greenery in the cities, to ensure that the city's lungs remain and the city is able to withstand disasters. So that is important. So we know that mangroves and vegetation along the coast, which is again mangroves, they help in containing flood waters. So even during the tsunami in Chennai, mangroves acted as a bulwark to contain the huge waves. So it is very essential that these lungs and these barriers to flood waters in the cities are allowed to prosper and stay rather than encroached. So these are the points put forth. Then it says other than heavy rains turning into floods, there are chances that cyclonic storms and water scarcity issues may also strike. So the governments need to be ready for any type of disaster. So then other point which it put forth eventually is what needs to take place is that shock absorbers, which are all nature's defenses, should be there in place. So it says that dunes and sand beaches also offer insurance against violent winds. They soak up rainwater and they protect inland aquifers from salinity intrusion. So they should be in place. Native vegetation cover and healthy network of water bodies can regulate microclimates and enhance local water security, even while mitigating the flood potential of heavy rains. So this is important. Nature's defenses. The availability of open, unbuilt land and water is critical to the resilience of human settlements. So these are the points. So this will give you a very good points for your answer in this present paper too. So you can write good answers. So that is it for today. Thank you so much.